Good morning, YouTube. Old Guy 379 here, coming back at you. I know it's been a couple days. Still feeling the repercussions of Mother Nature being a total B word and shutting down roads. And I got one customer here in Indiana that just is unwilling to budge. Apparently, their freight don't mean anything to them, and the freight that I have remaining on my trailer means even less. So anyway, I'm not going to name names, but because, you know, we haul in here all the time. So, but yeah, thanks a lot, people, for being so understanding. We love you. Question. Some things kind of came to mind over the last few days. What got you into trucking? Was it just seemed like a good career choice? Was it the intrigue of being out on the open road and kind of being your own boss? Was it, I just really need a job and this is what somebody told me I should do? You know, or was it like me where you grew up in the business and you've just done, you know, your entire life, all you've ever really wanted to do was drive a truck and be involved in the trucking industry? For me, it was the former, you know, or the latter, sorry, the end one there. I grew up in this business. I've been in it my entire life, literally. So, and as a kid, growing up, and now let me back up a little bit before I get too crazy here. Let me shift gears a little. I've got several friends whose dads were truck drivers who steered completely away from the trucking industry. Of course, a couple of those guys, their dads were freight haulers for some of the large carriers back in the day. One of them drove for Silver Wheels, if that'll bring back some memories for some of you guys. And then Zellerback Paper, he drove for them for years. And, you know, it was just something, I think that it was cool, but it just wasn't, it didn't end up being his career choice later on. I've got other friends, you know, same thing, you know, their dads were truck drivers, tow truck operators, whatever, and it just never really interested them. But for whatever reason, for me, it's been something that I've had a passion for since I was a little kid. I love trucks, man. I just have always been enamored by them. The guys that were driving when I was young, man, were just larger than life. You know, it's a completely different time now than it was then. And if you're young, you know, like 30 and under, you probably don't really quite understand the mystique around the drivers back then. You know, you guys being 30, you've always grown up with technology. And when I was growing up, we didn't have high-tech stuff. I mean, the highest tech thing we had, dude, was when they went from a 23-channel CB to a 40-channel CB. And then when the radar detectors first came out, I remember my dad, one of the guys we had driving for us, his name was Bill Henry. And Bill was kind of a speed freak. Not that our truck was super fast. We had an old 72 International with an NTC 350, a 13-speed, and I think that truck had like 430 something rear ends in it. It was low geared. It may have had 411s in it. I really don't remember. We had that truck got wrecked, and in 1980 we ended up with a 76 359 that had a big cam 3400, a 13-speed, and 411 rears with tall 24.5 rubber. But that truck was not fast either, but it could go over that 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. And at that time, you know, we were hauling livestock. We were moving a lot of hogs out of Kalispell, Montana, back into Spokane. Spokane had we had two big packing plants, actually. I had three at one time. Armour was there, High Grade was there, and a company called Beckwar, Becwar. And Beckwar was strictly a pork processing plant. And so Wednesday through Friday, that was hog hauling days. There used to be some major hog parlors in western Montana, and there was a lot of pigs come out of up there, man. I mean, it's unreal. You look at it now, the sale barn's gone up there in Kalispell. Most all those farms are gone. But anyway, you know, we hauled a lot of hogs, and so at that time, you know, like going up I-90 back in the late 70s. Man, I don't even remember what year it was. I can remember, though, when I-90 wasn't finished past St. Regis. You got off at DeBorgia and run Highway 10, you know, all the way into St. Regis. And I-90, I can remember looking through the trees off to the south when we were headed east, and you could see the construction going on, you know. And I was just a kid at the time, so I wasn't driving. I just remember that vividly. But anyway, you know, Montana had 45-mile-an-hour speed limits at night for trucks and 55 during the day. Some of the roads I can remember, if I remember right, on, man, what is that highway up there, 86? It comes back up through Moe East, through the Buffalo Range there, or Bison Range. I want to say it was like 45 in the day and 35 at night. I don't recall. Maybe if some of you guys ran that area back then, you can chime in. But anyway, so, you know, he had this Fuzzbuster, and this thing, I'm not kidding you, was a square deal. It was like this big around, their big square, and about that long, sitting up on the dash of the truck. And, you know, that was high tech, man. That radar detector, that was high tech, man. Drove my dad absolutely nuts. He just hated it. He was like, I don't know why he needs that freaking thing in here. He shouldn't be driving that damn fast anyway. My dad was a character. He was all about, he was very old school and do everything right. Now, having said that, my dad never ran a logbook. Never ran a logbook ever in his life. In 1989, what year was it? 88? Somewhere around there, Washington. So Washington had the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. They're the ones that kind of managed and oversaw the trucking industry and making sure people were running legal and everything. And the guy that was our PUC inspector retired, and they got a new guy in. And then, of course, at that point, you know, we were starting to get away from the ICC and the PUC and getting into the FMCSA and the USDOT doing all their inspections and everything. So this inspector came by and did an audit of my dad. And my dad just had one truck, you know, and from 1976 to 1989. And I remember I was talking to him when I was in the Marine Corps, and he goes, man, them SOBs showed up. I have to fill out a logbook now. And I'm like, what the heck's a logbook, Dad? And he goes, what's, you know, that thing you got to carry with you to keep track of your time? And I remember coming home on leave out of the Marine Corps and taking a trip with him there before he got hurt. And his idea of logging was off duty to on duty, or to driving, and then to wherever he got to load, and then it went back off duty. I mean, it never would have passed today's scrutiny, man, not at all. But we didn't run far. We run a lot of hours though, man. I mean, you know, we would get out there, and sometimes, you know, he'd start at 6 o'clock in the morning. We wouldn't get done till 5, 6, 7 o'clock the next morning. It was just straight through running, moving cows from pasture to pasture, or feedlot, you know, pasture to a feedlot, or sale barn to a to some rancher's place, or you know. But then that hog hauling deal, that was quite the deal, man. You know, in 3 days, it doesn't seem like much, you know, but from Spokane to Kalispell and back is about 7 hours. And you know, today probably faster, but in those days it was right around a 7-hour round, plus getting loaded and unloaded. No, Bill Henry in 3 days was running 5 rounds in 3 days, you know. And even when my dad was doing it, when we would fill in, you know, he would do sometimes, you know, 2 rounds right back to back, and it just long days. But where I'm getting with this is things were a lot different back then. You know, the whole operation of how guys did things completely different, absolutely different, you know. And so when I say these guys were larger than life, man, I mean, you know, I'm going to name some names here, and nobody probably even knows them, but, you know, we had guys, Kenny May. Kenny May was a cowboy. He was a bareback rider, bronc rider, pickup man for the PRCA. He had a truck, an old W900, and Kenny was an outlaw. He was kind of crazy. Great driver, you know, but he was definitely not the driver like my dad was. My dad was very much, you know, hey, put a clutch in that freaking truck, you use that damn thing, you know, you double clutch every shift, and and you know, watch what you're doing. And he was very professional, very much about when he was behind the wheel, things went very well. You know, and then that old boy Bud Woods, Bud, I don't remember. He worked for my dad back in the early 70s, late 60s. Who else was there? Kenny Stump was another guy. He drove for High Grade for years and years and years and years. And then when High Grade went under and shut down their operation in Spokane, he bought a truck and went out on his own. Another great guy, man, and just absolutely loved running around with him. A good friend of ours, Bud Trott. Bud was he worked for oh man, what the heck was the name of that? I can picture their trucks. They're green. It wasn't Buell. It was another chip hauling outfit to run out of Lewiston, Spokane, around there. And in those days, we had, man, I don't know how many lumber mills we had around Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and he drove chip truck for years, and then he went to work for Garrett Freight Lines and worked there right up into the time when ANR took over and finally just shut everything down. Then he went to work for Easy Loader Boat Trailers, and unfortunately he passed away, I think, in 94, 95 from cancer. Great guy, another guy, man. Dick Bourne, another guy, was a friend of ours, drove for Petrolane, hauled propane for years and years, and truck and trailer. That was the first time I'd ever seen a guy drive and skip gears, you know, and just, man, I mean, he was a total truck operator, man. I mean, he got in there and he got after it, you know, and I remember telling my dad, I said, I don't really like the way he drives. He's kind of hard on stuff. And he goes, well, you know what? He's never tore anything up, so whatever. But, you know, having said this, you know, I got to ride around with a lot of different guys when I was a kid, you know, and moving cows and doing all that. And it really made an impression on me. And it's all I ever, like I said, it's all I ever wanted to do, to watch these guys drive these trucks, man. It was so amazing. I mean, I've watched my dad put a truck, you know, and a semi into a place where you'd be like, there is no way he's ever getting in there. And, you know, he'd back in off some narrow county road and get down in there around a tractor shed behind somebody's house. And I remember, you know, we'd have 2x4s with a piece screwed, nailed across the top and holding power lines up. I remember getting up on top of the trailer with a stick and holding up power lines and walking along the trailer to get the power lines over the top of the trailer. You know, I mean, real safe stuff for you know, a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid to be doing. But, you know, I did it. And, you know, things were just different back then. I can't imagine anybody doing that with their kids now. I mean, you know, maybe some farm kids, you know, I know there's still some of that going on, but, yeah, I've kind of talked long enough about that, I guess. You know, so what got you into trucking? What was the draw that brought you into this business? Again, you know, what was it? Was it a paycheck? You know, I mean, I talked to a lot of guys out here, man, and really, in all reality, no offense, but you have no business being out here. You hate it. You hate every second of it. All I hear is complaining there's a few guys I have in mind that I've spoke to a lot. And there's a couple guys that have been doing this for close to 30 years like I have, and they just hate it, man. I mean, nothing about it is fun to them. And it would be like being a mechanic and hating cars or hating trucks. You know, you just hate everything about them, but you're still a mechanic, and you're a good mechanic, but you hate it. You have no passion for it. And I guess I could go in any business, any industry, any career. You know, I guess I just can't fathom why you would do something you hate, that you just despise. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling on here today, but that was kind of the thought, you know, and I wanted to share a few stories, you know, about how I came about, how I got, you know, into this business. It wasn't just a deal where, you know, I watched Smokey and the Bandit one day and went, oh, I want to be a truck driver. You know, I literally have been immersed in this since birth. And by the way, Smokey and the Bandit's a great movie. It's not my favorite, but it is a great movie. Convoy is still one of my favorites. Man, what are some of the other ones? White Line Fever, Highballin', while we're talking about trucking movies. Oh man, Steel Cowboys. They Drive by Night. That was another one that was pretty cool back in the day. Man, what movies am I leaving out? You know, Big Trouble in Little China. It was kind of a dumb movie. Black Dog, I'm going to leave that one alone, okay? If it hadn't been for Randy Travis and Meatloaf being in that movie, I probably never would have watched it, you know? Just saying. I'm just saying. And by the way, Meatloaf plays an absolutely super convincing crazy person, man. That guy, oh, sorry, I got a little off track there. But anyway, guys, man, hey, just leave your comments below, you know, what it was that got you into the business, you know, and what it is you love about it, what it is you hate about it. You know, what I love about it, you know, I love the camaraderie. I love the freedom. I love the trucks. You know, I love just driving, period, man. I mean, it's just, to me, there's nothing more calming and relaxing, even on crappy roads and foggy weather. You know, there's an amount of stress that, excuse me, comes with it, but it's not, it's a different kind of stress that I don't mind. And at the end of the day, you know, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling. The things I hate about this industry, the lack of camaraderie. I know I just said the camaraderie a minute ago about what I love about it, but I also hate the lack of camaraderie. When you make friends out here and, you know, or acquaintances, and you start seeing them all the time, that's awesome. But what we don't have these days is a mutual respect among drivers, from driver to driver, regardless of who you are, who you work for, what kind of truck you drive. And I really started seeing that degrade in the early 2000s, you know, and some in my generation and some and a lot in the younger generation. It seems like we've really stepped away from a love for our fellow man and a respect for our fellow man. And that is, as an old guy, is very sad to see. You know, my parents were older, so everybody I grew up around was older. They were older boomers, way older boomers. Even earlier than that, you know, my parents grew up during the Depression and during World War II. So, you know, they were quite a bit older. And I don't know, man. I think that had something to do with my mentality and my work ethic and why I do what I do. You know, I'm a workaholic. When I'm at home, you know, I like to sit back and relax, but I've got stuff to do, so I just got to get it done. And when I was home every day, and that's what it turned into when I was home every day, and part of my stress was I worked all the time. All the time. To me, this is like a giant vacation, man. I don't consider it work. There's hard days, you know, long days. You know, you're dealing with traffic and weather and shippers and receivers and dispatchers sometimes that don't understand. It's been a long time since I've really dealt with that company side of things and having to deal with a dispatcher that has no clue. Fortunately, in my career, man, I've worked as, you know, when I was a company driver, I worked with a guy that spent, you know, over 20 years out here. The dude knew what he was, and he knew what we were going through. I just, you know, I feel for a lot of you guys, man. I really do. I guess, what's it like working for one of those giant carriers? You know, is it from maybe somebody who's like me, who worked for smaller companies that went to work for one of them? What's that like? Is it a hard transition? Is it tough to do? Do you get mad? Do you leave? I mean, I'm just curious, because I don't know. I've never worked for a company. I mean, System and TWT there in Spokane, I think total 500 trucks, but, you know, everybody there knew you by name. They didn't ask you your truck number unless you just changed trucks. You know, when they talked to you, it was always by name, and it was like a giant family, man. I mean, you know, and all the drivers that were there, the guys that had been there for decades when I started and were still there when I left, you know, it was just like a giant family, you know, a big extended family. And, you know, we'd meet up at one of the yards and out in, you know, either down at Bloomington or French Camp or, you know, Gary, Indiana, and we'd all go have dinner together and sit around at BS, and sometimes we'd have a barbecue, you know. It was awesome. It was really like family time. It was get-together time. But Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off subject again, and I'm really trying to keep these under 20 minutes. Leave your comments below, and please, man, you know, this whole YouTube thing, like I've said, and I keep saying it, I've never really thought it would go where it is. Is it huge? No, but it's bigger than I thought it would be. And if any of you find any value in what I say, or any entertainment at least in what I say, and you enjoy it, man, please hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you get more notifications. If you hit the like and subscribe button, you're going to get notified more of when I put new videos out. So anyway, drivers, take care, man. Like I said, man, I love you all. I respect each and every one of you for what you do. Keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Take care, man. See ya.